Bum, ba-da-da. Hello.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I get to be here talking about Lorcana with you
Yeah,
today, so that's pretty good.
we got so this is episode 9 and
Wow.
and yeah,
Our
it's
our
always
very own The Rise of Skywalker.
the rise of Jester Dujour.
Yeah, sure.
There
Something like that.
there it is. So,
Yeah.
how's your how's your week?
It's been all right. It's been all right. Got to play a little bit. Big box release was obviously on Friday. I was able to go to like a little local tournament yesterday
Yeah,
with you. Um, had a fun time there.
right?
And now we're here.
So, we did go to a local tournament and we had a lot of fun. Well,
Yes,
you
we did.
you brought something really spicy, and I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. We brought the Pirates deck. Because this week, well, we talked a little bit about my faucet deck last week,
Right.
when we had our special guests, both Zenulus and Humble, with us. And I just had not had the chance to really uh, follow through as much after having gotten a little bit of help from them,
Right.
to actually upgrade my Mufasa deck. And so it just wasn't doing well this week. So we brought the Pirates, um, and it did surprisingly better than expected. So that's nice.
So you saying that you weren't expecting your fun pirate deck to be as good as what it was?
Right. No, I fully expected to go there and lose every match, like embarrassingly bad.
Yeah. And
But
how did you do?
but I only lost two matches embarrassingly bad.
And then
So
smoked a certain other person that we will not name.
yeah, yeah. Some fellow so-called competitor
Yeah.
who will remain anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was me, guys.
yeah.
He beat the brakes off of me.
It was fun.
Who would have thought that?
Would recommend.
Right. Who would have thought that what's it called? Sapphire has a hard time dealing with locations.
Yeah,
Who would have thought that?
yeah. Who would have thought that? Hey, you know what you can't hit with your coil?
What's that?
Locations.
Oh, yeah, that is
Yeah.
I will also note that muses cannot bounce locations.
No, they could not.
So, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked your iteration of the deck, and I think it's a really good starting point.
Yeah, I think it's definitely got some more work to be done. There's some cards that just aren't in there that I think probably should be.
Right.
But that's gonna be what this week's all about. Um, Not to spoil anything, but more than likely, I think there's another tournament coming up here pretty soon, and I'm pretty sure that Pirates are what I'm going to be taking.
Arg, matey. All aboard.
Yar me matey.
All aboard is going aboard, am I right? Yeah, so we do have
What?
the all aboard who's going aboard.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's anyhow.
Huzzah.
Yeah. So we do have the case tournament in Kansas
Mhm.
City coming up next weekend, and
Yeah.
yeah,
The Arcasias Island.
yeah, the
It's funny.
Arcasia's Island, right?
Yeah,
So
Arcasias.
yeah, that's a nice play on
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. I
But
appreciate it. I appreciate a good pun.
we right. So yeah, we are going to that. And I have some work that I need to do on my blue green list because last night we went to
Yeah.
another locals tournament and I did
Oh yeah.
not.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it was. I did awful,
Uh
and
huh.
I ended up winning one round, which was
Okay.
because I got the buy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
yeah.
hey, a dub's a dub. We'll just say that.
Way to go, man.
Yeah, hey,
Hey,
thanks. It was
for the
hard.
longest time, those were the only dubs I was ever getting.
Hey, dude, and I'll tell you, it was pretty rough out there. But
Yeah.
there was
What was
light.
everybody else on?
We had one amethyst steel, one blue purple, one
Okay.
red blue, or and then another blue green. So and then one amber steel.
Mhm.
So we had like 6 decks there.
Right.
There, none. I don't think any of them shared a color combination. Well, yeah, I played blue green, and another guy played blue green. It was
Okay.
slightly different iterations. I was using more of like the muses and songs, and
Yeah.
they were not. They were using like genies and mother gothels, which is pretty good, I think.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like it was a really good time. I will say
Mhm.
that out of both local tournaments yesterday, Steel Song went 3-0. So
It's
people can
a
people can
it's a good deck.
it's a good deck. So I mean, like it's one of those things people can do with that information at what they will. But
Right.
I by no means
No.
I by no
No.
means think that Amber Steel is dead.
Right. Now, granted, these are both, very teeny tiny tournaments.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, they're very fun to go to and everything, and it's a very local meta. But yeah, I don't think Steel Song is nearly as dead as people were proclaiming at the beginning of the set.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, I agree. I think it looks a little different. So it's like more of an
Hmm.
aggro base with like song control.
Yeah,
Is like the iteration that won the locals yesterday because Sapphire does have a hard time with uh well, Sapphire in general struggles a little bit into aggro matchups.
sure.
And don't get me
Well, it
wrong,
takes you a while to get everything set up.
right? You know, you definitely want to be like your turn 2 ramp, this, that, and the other. The thing is like the 3-drop bell helps with the aggro a little
Hmm.
bit, but I don't think it helps out with the aggro as much as what people initially thought.
Yeah.
But
So we're kind of standing by kind of what we've been saying from the beginning that through drop bell coming out turn one. Yes, it's a big deal,
yes,
but it's not the game changing card that it at least seemed like at first blush.
right. I think that the issue with the 3-drop bell is if you if you don't have the 3-drop bell in your opening hand
Mhm.
and you're playing like the Storm Rage ons and the strengths, like you have removal spells in your hand that are going to take you till turn 3 to play, you know. And that's assuming that you don't want to like turn 2 ramp and then turn 3 remove
Sure.
something and then follow it up or whatever. That's
Yeah.
just it feels a little weird sometimes to like
Hmm.
play an item turn 1, banish the item, play the bell, ramp turn 2, and then on like your turn 3 like you have a flavor shim in your hand but you don't have an item on the board.
Right.
So it's like I'm not saying by no means that bell's a bad card, but
Yeah.
I think it makes the play patterns of your ramp decks a little clunky, I guess is what I'm trying to
Okay.
say. But
Right.
I mean, I'll definitely let people that are smarter than me like prove me wrong because,
Sure.
you know, because like I'm just a guy with an opinion, right? And I don't play the bell
Yeah.
anyways, so it's like I'm just observing what I see from the opposite side of the table
Right.
or as a spectator.
Yeah. Let's say I think. God, have I? If I have played, especially like a Sapphire Steel deck, if I've played one, it's been so long that, and it definitely wasn't even close to like what an actual meta deck is, that my opinion is pretty much for nothing on that one.
Right. And I mean, that's the other thing too is like I don't play blue steel. Like I have a blue red deck
Right.
that I put together and
Hmm.
in the early days of like testing this set, I was using because I knew that Tamatoa was gonna be everywhere because the card's scary, right? So
Sure.
so I in my initial list, the first list that I was testing out a singular copy of the plank and a singular copy of Sword of Truth,
Hmm.
and it seems to be the right call because a lot of blue red decks are now playing at least one copy of the sword, right?
Sure.
But I mean,
I assume. I say I haven't seen too much of it, but I mean it makes sense to have that card in there.
it just makes it a lot easier and a lot cleaner to deal with Tamatoas and stuff along those lines.
Sure. Just to be clear, I want to make sure which sword it is you're talking about.
It's
Is that
I think it's a set one sword. It's a 4 cost uninkable item that has the
okay?
text banish this item to banish a villain.
Perfect. Yeah, we're talking. Okay, there it is. We're talking the Sword of Truth.
Right, yes.
Yes.
Which
Yeah, because that's.
which is
I
all
started to look it up, and there's like three different sword, so three different ruby sword items
right.
that were coming up for me.
Right.
But,
So the being able to like banish an unconventional tool to play the bell for free, or
mhm.
even banishing it with Hiram, and then having your next item cost 2 less, so you can play a sword on turn
Sure.
sword on turn 2. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to do sword on turn 2, but you can. And
Right.
I wholeheartedly stand by that. Unconventional tool is a sleeper card.
Hmm.
Like that's the card is like allowing people to play like Fishbone Quill on turn 2 or Maurice's Workshop on turn 2, and then like just establishing like another form of turn 2 ramp and
Yeah.
other stuff. It's a very good card.
Definitely seems that way. What little I've seen of it in use, it seems to keep getting the job done.
Right. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are there any cards right now that have like actually like surprised you at how well they perform from the new set?
Not not necessarily.
Uh huh.
Um, well, I'm trying to think. The As far as new cards, the biggest ones that I've seen that surprised me, and just for some reason, I don't know, it just never really struck me, at least that I was going to be running into it as much as I have already, is the Ruby Steel, the Challenger deck, well, with Mushu and all that and everything. I expected it to be like a little bit of flavor to pop up every once in a while.
Right.
So far, I mean, not counting like the little tournaments that we were just at, the local tournaments that we were just at this weekend. But aside from that, within the very limited time that this set has been out, it feels like almost every night I go out to play, I keep running into it,
Right.
and it's it's a good deck. Don't get me wrong. Um, I wish Honestly, yeah. You know what? It's not a card from this set. The card that I keep seeing the most, and it shouldn't surprise me, but you know what I keep seeing the most, and it keeps infuriating me seeing this card everywhere,
What's that?
is Calhoun. It's a darn good card, man. But wow, is it a problem?
Calhoun the Goon. Yeah. Calhoun is a
Yeah,
very good card. I think it's a staple. I think it's a staple 3 or 4
she's
of in.
tough.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a staple three
Pretty
or
much. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a pretty much staple 3 or 4 of in every steel deck.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. If you're running steel at all, you're putting her in,
Right.
because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then since we are on the topics about like good cards and good decks and stuff along and what we've seen a lot of, have you been paying attention to the Charlie's Collectible show?
That's the tournament going on like right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they have top 8 going on
Or
right now, and the top 8
okay,
bracket looks insane.
yeah.
There's a lot of Sapphire up
I
there.
have not been able to see any of it, unfortunately.
There's a lot of Sapphire out in the mix.
I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah, I think. Let me get an accurate count here.
I was saying, do you have like a link or anything?
Well, since it's still going
Hey,
on,
anybody in the chat, have you been watching it? Let us know. What have you seen?
I think.
What have you been seeing a lot of?
Yeah, here, hold on. I do believe I have something here,
Okay.
and I'm gonna send this. I'm gonna send this over to you so you can see it.
Okay.
And I'm sending it to your messenger.
Oh, okay. Let me open my messenger then.
So essentially, what we have is, I think we have every deck in Top Cut is blue, except for one ruby amethyst and one amethyst steel. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So of the top 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So of the top 8, 6 of them are Sapphire.
Yes, that is
You've
accurate.
got one Amethyst Steel and Amethyst Ruby matchup.
Right. And then we have
That
a total of 5 blue red decks, which means that there are,
4.
and then we have 2 blue steel.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 Ruby Sapphire, 2 Sapphire
Oh, right.
Steel,
Yeah.
and then an Amethyst Steel and an Amethyst Ruby.
The lonely amethyst decks had to face each other.
Ugh, that's a bit rude.
Right. Yeah, so pretty diverse meta, if I say so myself.
Yeah. Wow.
Which just makes us, which kind of just like segues us into last week's episode when we were talking to Xenulus and Humble, and they were talking about like, how if you're playing Sapphire anything, you're probably making the right call.
Right.
Which I mean,
Yeah.
of those, of those top 8 decks, at least 6 of them are playing the 3-cost Bell.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
So,
wow.
do we need to do at this time? Let's talk about. Do you think that there needs to be an errata or a ban of some sort to diversify what's going on here, or do you think that it's still too early in the meta to actually tell?
I think. Yeah, I mean, and again, we're talking. We're just two fellas with opinions, right?
That's all we are. And chat.
That being said, yeah, go ahead.
To say, and chat, if you think that any of this is relevant, please leave a comment.
For sure.
But back to
you. Yeah, back to me. As far as an errata goes, anything like that, I am particularly of the mind of just let it be.
Yeah.
Right. Even now, granted, I mean, and I have given this disclaimer so many times. I am not a TCG expert, right? This is my first and only trading card game that I have ever engaged with in any sort of fashion, right? That being said, as far as the meta being, yeah, sure, it's super defined. Sapphire seems to have a definite advantage over any of the other inks. There's also 204 brand new cards that will come out in 3 months. So maybe Sapphire just runs the table for a couple of months. It will be okay.
Yeah.
Like if it's a year from now and the exact same Ruby Sapphire deck is beating everything, then sure, let's start talking erratas, let's start talking bans. Uh, Anything faster than even 6 months, I would say, seems to be a snap judgment. Uh, Personally, at least to me. That being said, yeah, it sucks getting continually beat by the same deck, even for like a week, right? I mean, if you go to say, I mean, granted, we are very fortunate with our situation here in here where we are locally, right? Because where we're at, there is a league night you could participate in just about every weeknight,
Right.
you know? Like, I mean, and if you're going potentially to 2 or 3 places a week, and everywhere you go, it is the same deck or the same deck with like just a little bit of adjustments, and it keeps beating you, that's going to be very dispiriting. And I feel that. Like, trust me, I am there. I have been there. That's pretty much where I live when we're playing Lorcana.
Right.
But hey, in 3 months, who knows? Or maybe even before then, especially when you've got a super defined meta like that, Sapphire's beating everything. Everybody else online is working towards trying to defeat that single deck. There's going to come up with an answer.
Right. And it's whenever you have like the boogeyman of the meta, right? So you have
Sure.
your Sapphire decks, they're the boogeymans and everything else. That means that people are gonna start teching more towards um Sapphire, right? So people are gonna
Right.
maybe take a more aggro route or a more location based route. And then what happens is you make a meta to where it's like kind of like a rock paper scissors, right? So
Hmm.
if you expect a lot of blue red or a lot of blue steel and you tech more for those matchups, what happens is like you can come in or somebody else can come in with a rogue deck, if you will,
Hmm.
and have it more of like not necessarily like geared more towards one or the other, but geared more towards like going like more of like a 49-51 where nothing's really favorable but nothing really feels bad.
Right.
So I think that 49-51 that I'm talking about, I think is where like the decks like green blue and amethyst steel are, to where they don't
Hmm.
necessarily have a bad matchup, but they don't necessarily have like great matchups either.
Sure. Right. I mean, and yeah, like you said, I mean, there's going to be, just because Sapphire is doing extremely well doesn't mean they will always win, right?
Right, right.
For example, I don't know if you've seen or not. Um, Somebody else was just sending us a link to, there was a deck over in, I'm looking at it right now on Inkdex. Yeah, a tournament over in Belgium,
Okay.
right? An Amethyst Emerald deck took it.
Amethyst Emerald. Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
an Amethyst Emerald discard deck, right?
That's
Now, granted, that took first. Then you've got second, third, and fourth are all blue steel,
right.
you know. But they're going to do well. It's not a guarantee that if you sit down across from somebody playing Sapphire, they're going to win. Nothing is written.
Yes. I wholeheartedly believe I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like you can sit across from um Sapphire Steel and you can watch
Hmm.
and you can watch the RNG of the game like really affect the way that things turn out, right? Because what
Right.
happens is because what happens is this is your opponent plays an Oswald and then inks a card and then puts one of their good cards that they would like to have on the bottom, like a Tamatoa, a Hiram,
Sure.
or anything along those lines. Like I watched a guy yesterday playing
That's
Sapphire.
I was just about to mention yesterday.
Right. So there we had a situation or this guy had a situation where he had an Oswald in play. His opponent was playing Sapphire or Amber Steel, and he inks a card and puts a removal spell at the bottom, and then passes his turn. His opponent then quests with a Daisy Duck, reveals the top card, and it's a lucky dime, and it goes to the bottom. And then he inks a card, puts a removal spell at the bottom. Then his opponent again quests with Daisy Duck, and it just like kept happening like that.
Yeah.
Like, the Sapphire Steel player was putting all of their removal and good cards like Tomatos and stuff at the bottom of the deck, and then the opponent was questing with multiple daisies and putting the items at the bottom of the deck. So like essentially, it's like at some point, like you're asking your opponent to remove the Oswald, but they don't want to do that.
Right.
But I mean, it's like one of those situations where like, yeah, it's Sapphire Steel is a very good deck, but the RNG of the game can definitely affect how good it performs.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
The same way with red blue too. Like, you have it can get kind of clunky whenever you go, like your turn one, you play the popsicle or whatever, you banish it, you play the bell or whatever, or unconventional tool, and then if you don't have a Hiram to refill your hand, like it gets very the play patterns in that deck gets very clunky too, to where if you gas out and you drop your hand too early and you don't have a Hiram or items to play them, like you kind of just sit there. So it's one of those things where like I think that these decks are very powerful, but you also have to have the right amount of like play knowledge with the deck to where you know what to do when.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's so many decks like that. I mean, there's a reason why, right? Especially like getting ready for a tournament or anything. There's a reason why you've got to keep getting your reps in. You've got to play the deck that you're playing to know it. There are very few. I'm not going to say there's none, but there are very few decks that do well at all that you can just pick up cold.
Right. And it's even like a lot of it is now, even with aggro, is you have to, it's like aggro is you have to play a lot smarter with aggro now than what you used to have to do too. Because like now, even with the decks that you are good against, which are the Sapphire decks, now you have to be cautious of a turn 1 3/3.
Right.
So it's I think the game's becoming a lot more like skill based, aside from how you could just, I don't know, it felt like before you kind of like just pay to win, if that makes sense, where the most expensive decks have a favorable matchup almost all the time.
Sure.
But now it feels like there's a lot of like more budget style decks where the cards haven't seen a lot of play that are starting to pick up steam, because if you I mean, like I said about the 4951, when you can pick up a budget style deck and have no unfavorable matchups or no favorable matchups, and it just depends on the skill of the player. I like to see it.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'm saying we're gonna get Sardine Can to be a meta relevant card. Don't you worry.
I think
that's gonna be that type of deck.
I think Sardine Can might be something that people are experimenting with.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, like you have.
Hey, if you're experimenting with Sardine Cans out there, keep up the good work.
If you think about it though, like Sardine Can kind of makes sense more now than it ever has, because if your exerted characters have ward and you're playing against Sapphire Coils and along came Zeus's, like it puts you in a pretty good spot whenever you quest and your opponent just can't like
I,
double ink Sapphire Quill and CC your board away.
yeah, no, I stand by. I think ward is still probably the best and most important keyword.
It's very strong.
I think at least.
I think it's very strong.
Yeah.
I think so I've been playtesting with blue green a lot, and most of the time it's been like Hero Hamada is such a problem for a lot of decks. Like if you can consistently shift to Hero Hamada on turn 4 or 5, you know, it's very strong in the aspect of all of my shifted characters now have ward and evasive.
Right.
And
yeah, having both is pretty great. Well, for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you're sitting down across from like a steel player and all of your threats are unanswerable to steel players.
Right.
Like, they're like Hero Hamada is a very good card, and I very much a fan of him.
Yeah.
It's
no, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's by far my favorite card in the set. Have you been experimenting with Mufasa at all?
Not at all. Unfortunately, I had started to mess with it a little bit, and then we played. You and I played Thursday night.
Yep.
And that was when I decided that I was going to take pirates over the weekend, because it was just, man, it was one of those, like, if I even look at my Mufasa deck, I'm just gonna get upset again.
Right.
Sort of things. Yeah. Because that had the exact opposite problem, especially playing against you with your muses and whatnot. Because about 90%, it felt like at least 90% of my deck was 2 strength or lower.
Right.
And so you didn't even have to worry about getting a coil out or anything like that. It was anything I'd play was coming right back. And then usually you'd have a way to make me discard it as well.
Oh, yeah. So it's like the Muses plus Songs is very good against the aggro style decks that are kind of lower to the curve. And then being able to follow it up with a Bend to My Will or something along those natures is extreme. It's very oppressing whenever it works. I did that against a blue steel player yesterday after establishing a Hero Hamada that was shifted and shifted Clarabelle. I was able to You're Welcome, a Dime, and a Tamatoa, and then follow it up with a Bend to My Will. So it's like one of those things that's like in that matchup, if they just don't go like bananas the first 3 turns and win, then it becomes more like the longer the game goes on, I think it becomes more favorable for a Bend to My Will deck, because it's just it's only a matter of time before like you just shuffle all the important stuff back in, you make them discard their hand, and now it's like they're hoping for like crazy stuff off the top.
That makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
Have you with your Emerald Steel Pirates list? Have you had the pleasure of playtesting against any sort of aside from me, any other Sapphire decks?
There was the person yesterday running the Sapphire Steel items.
Right.
Deck. And I got ripped apart.
Yeah.
With that. So
I think that
pirates definitely need a little bit of work.
Right.
The part of it is the deck as I'm running it. Technically, the only item removal it has is like I think maybe 2 copies of I Find My Platinum.
Okay.
Which isn't enough.
Sure.
You know, I have like the 1-drop Pete that's in there from the new set that if you play an action that is not a song, you can banish chosen item. But I don't have any actions that aren't songs anymore in that deck.
Right.
I yeah, I swapped out. Anyways, we'll go over it another time. Because I'm probably gonna put some actions back in. I might lose a few Stormbreach ons in place for Fire the Cannons.
Right. That makes sense.
Right. Just a matter of whether or not I get to draw a card. Go ahead.
Right. So yeah, we have so we have the case tournament next week, and so we'll see how we do there.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'll make the minor changes, and then we have play testing this week. So we'll definitely make the optimal changes to all of our lists, and then test them, and then definitely let the audience know what we feel about that next week.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna be here next week. I think this week we got to cut out a little early.
Right. Next week we should be able to go a little bit longer though.
Yeah, a little bit. Our goal is to start doing these weekly. So we probably won't be going as long as we've been going before.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're not doing 2 to 3 hour podcasts anymore on Sundays. We're gonna try to keep them around like right between like 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yeah, somewhere in there. In the meantime, though, thank you for coming and hanging out with us today.
Yeah, for sure.
Make sure to use. You've got the affiliate link posted, right?
I do. We have the QR code down in the bottom right corner of the screen. So anytime during the podcast, you can use that to go to the TCG player link if there's any cards that we've talked about that you want to get while they're low. Or
use that to go pick up a play set of sardine cans.
Yeah, do it now before they jump to $10.
Yeah.
And then make sure you follow us at all the socials. All the socials are posted there on the bottom too.
Yep. I assume you're Brohammington everywhere.
Yep, I sure am, and I do believe if I follow you correctly, you're Jester Dujour everywhere.
That's where you'll find me.
That's where you'll find that guy.
Not on Twitter, but I'm on Bluesky.
I'm on Twitter.
Come hang out with me on Bluesky.
Right. So yeah, and then Lycos14 just posted our link tree in the chat there.
Hey.
So
how about that? Thank you very much.
Right on. So yeah, guys. So thanks for hanging out. That's it for this week's episode, and we'll see you next week.
Take care of yourselves.
Stay classy.
Don't worry about that.
See you guys.